Hello and most welcome. Today we will talk on Jungian psychology with focus on dreams, unconscious, and as if personality. Our guest today is Dr. Susan. Susan E. Schwartz, PhD, trained in Zurich, Switzerland as a Jungian analyst, is also a clinical psychologist and member of International Association of Analytical Psychology. She presents to numerous Jungian conferences and teaching programs in the USA and worldwide. She is an experienced analyst of Jungian psychology with focus on dreams, unconscious, and relationship to self and others. Let's welcome Dr. Susan to the show. Doctor, welcome and tell us how are you doing today?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you very much. How is it going in your city and how is it going? What's the weather and everything else?
The weather in Arizona, where I am, is in the Phoenix area, is cloudy today. Cloudy, yes. Otherwise, okay. Yes.
So first, doctor, tell us about your story, your life, who you are, a little bit.
A little bit. All right. Well, I've been an analyst for many, many years, and I've spent my whole life actually being one form of therapist or another, always getting more degrees. And what that means is always trying to find knowledge of people in relation to my work and also in relation to understanding people in the world, their relationships to themselves and to other people. It goes together. If you know yourself, you're probably more related in the world, and your relationships are probably better as well. So the whole place of knowing, but not just knowing conscious, it's also being aware of what's going on in the unconscious. And that's where dreams fit. Not only dreams, relationships, life events, partnerships, problems, things you like, things you don't like. All of those tell you about yourself. So it isn't so hard in some ways to understand yourself and others, and in other ways it's completely difficult and always a mystery, which it should be.
Yeah, thank you very much. Or what about your publications?
Yes. So the first one I had was The Absent Father Effect on Daughters, Father Desire, Fatherhood.
It was a book.
Was a book, yes, 2020. And then in 2022, Imposter syndrome and the as personality in analytical psychology, fragility of the self. And this year, I have another one which will come out, which is exploration of the Puella archetype, girl unfolding in analytical psychology. So they're all, and then another one next year on narcissism. So they're all really around similar themes of trying to understand what has affected our lives and how we can grow and learn our entire life, not just when we're younger, but as we go.
And thank you so much for this much contribution to the psychology. And you wrote 4 books. It will be a big contribution. And now, doctor, tell us about Jungian analytical psychology. How is helpful and what is unique about this approach?
Well, there are quite a few things that are unique. Jung was a Swiss psychiatrist who, from the 20th century, and he separated from Freud and went his own direction. And that meant how he interpreted conscious life and unconscious as well. So most analysts look at dreams, they look at the unconscious, it's how they interpret it. And what Jung did that was quite significant, I think, was he brought forth the idea of the archetypes, which is a way that we all can understand each other, and what he called the collective unconscious. But Jung also talked about introvert and extrovert. We're all familiar with those terms. He also brought up the concept of the shadow, which we can all understand because when we stand in the sunshine, we've all got one. So it's
Yeah.
right behind us and therefore carries qualities that we are not using, that are valuable, and qualities that aren't so great. So we want to keep them in the shadow. The thing that Jung also talked about was the gradual unfolding of the self, meaning who you are as a person, but also it encompasses the wider world, like nature, the land, religious symbols, spiritual life. And Jungian psychology has got that kind of a bit of a spiritual, like the spirit of a person, spiritual. Astrology, things like that are all contributory to the process of becoming yourself. That's what Jung called it, the process of individuation. To be you, not to be a cookie cutter person.
So, one personal question I have, what is like, do you think the Freud psychology stems from Jung, some of its portion, or the Jung stems from Freud, or no? Or they follow some way the same path?
You know, it's all of the above. So Freud influenced Jung, Jung influenced Freud, even though they had quite a split from each other and their friendship did not survive. They believed similarly in the psychology and the value of finding out about oneself. They both dealt with dreams. They both thought the depths of what it is to be a person takes time to uncover. But they also had radical differences. How they looked at the psychology of a person, they labeled it differently, but there were some pretty big differences involved. I would say one, we all are familiar, not we all, but a lot of people are familiar with Oedipus complex, or, you know, the be with the mother or be with the father. But Jung says there's not just one myth. Mythology has many different characters. So Jung looked at more characters. Freud did too, but he did it differently. So the overlap is so interesting because you can see a lot of similarities because we're all people,
Yeah,
but they were very different people.
exactly.
Yeah. Mhm.
So how Jungian psychology focuses on dreams and unconscious, and what does dream tell about us? Like,
Well, if you've ever tried to remember your dreams, sometimes they're not so easy to catch. Sometimes they are easy. They tell us amazing things. Sometimes they prophesize into the future. Of course, you don't know because the future hasn't happened yet. But it's not it's not unusual that people, oh, just recently, the war in the Middle East, several people that I see dreamt about war in the Middle East the exact day it happened. Oh, So, from in the United States, they could tell all those miles away, look at the beauty and the amazingness of the unconscious. So the dreams would say that. But then also they tell about personal issues of things that you know about yourself and things that you don't know that you need to know. For instance, if somebody puts themselves down a lot or doesn't feel good about themselves, their unconscious might give them information about what's good. So the psyche tries to balance itself. Jung calls it self-regulating. So you're always seeking balance. I mean, that's life. We're always seeking balance. You asked me about the weather. Well, the weather one day is one, and then it's going to be seeking its balance because that's what nature does. So we're part of nature. So the dreams will talk about problems, how to solve problems. They'll talk about your health. They'll talk about how to be in good health. They'll say what you need to do. And they'll also tell you really where you're running into a problem. There also is an interesting thing about dreams. It's not unusual that, say, for instance, people who are partners or parent and child, one might dream the dreams of the other. You can see how the unconscious lives in the dwelling or the atmosphere, that one could dream the dream of the other. So it's very interesting to share dreams.
Wow.
Yeah, it's very powerful. It's a beautiful way for partners to be closer by sharing their dreams, and for parents and children as well. It's really because it's natural. Dreams are nature.
Yeah, and when the people see the future in their dreams,
Yeah.
what do you think is that? Because the science mostly don't want to talk about the future and things. They want to talk about the facts that they can see. So it's very controversial issue. Yeah. I,
It is, but you can say the unconscious is not, I mean, it's a fact, but you can't
yeah.
grab it. You can't
Yeah.
grab it like a fact. And you can have a dream about the future. You won't know until the future happens. But
Okay.
it's a preparation. It will prepare you. And if you believe in the power of what you know, more dreams will come through that will give you a lot of, what should I say? They'll give you your foundation. I'll give you an example. Someone that I was just speaking to was talking about a dream they had when they were 2. So they were 2 years old, and that early dream kind of, they can still remember it in their life, and it still has an effect. So there's the future there. The 2-year-old had the dream, and it still has an effect now. Childhood dreams are very powerful.
Yes. And is there any relationship between the dreams and imagination, or yeah, like when we see in the real life? Like I myself in the childhood, I was having imaginations. Like
Yeah, yeah. Well, so many books are written because they were a dream. Speaking of science, many scientific discoveries came through dreams.
ah,
Many thoughts and ideas, philosophical, etc., have come through dreams. So the dreams are important in that, but your dream life carries an imagination to it as well. You want to honor the imagination. Jung has a technique called active imagination, where you kind of um, It's like writing to yourself or
Mhm.
talking to yourself without any filter and just letting the information flow. That's like imagination. It's
Mhm.
very important to have an
Mhm.
imagination, to be able to dream, and daydreams as well, to expand your life.
Mhm.
And so I would ask you, in your imagination as a child, do you still imagine? Do you still have the imagination? Do you still do it?
Yeah, and nowadays I'm doing it consciously and deliberately.
Yeah, yeah,
But back then it was undeliberatedly, and it was very interesting and joyful for me
yeah,
when I was child.
exactly. That's the point of the imagination. What is sad is how many people do not access their imagination. So you could
Mm.
say to them, what do you imagine you want your life to be?
Mm.
Oh, they might not know. What do you imagine for the next week, or how will you feel fulfilled? They don't know, and they would want to access their imagination. It's important. It
I read a book about this imagination. The book name is The Power of Awareness, and it's all talking about the imagination.
Yeah,
And when I tested, it really worked. Like when we imagine, sometime I myself most of the time manifested that imagination.
yeah, it's great. The thing about imagination is that in our world, we might tend to be too scientific, too factual, too cut and dried, and we want to be able to freely create. That's what imagination does. The other thing about imagination is it honors symbols that are important to us. I think we each have favorite symbols, a
Mm.
flower, a color, an event. It has meaning for us. And that is also really important. The world of symbols, what they mean personally, culturally, and they come in dreams. So
Mm.
someone from X culture will dream about, say, a flower, and somebody from another culture will dream the same flower. They'll mean two different things.
Mm.
Yeah. So one's culture will come through the dreams as well. It helps define yourself.
Thank you so much. Because knowing oneself is knowing everything, as I heard. Yeah, like we don't have to seek things outside ourselves. Yeah.
Or you could turn that around and say, as you know yourself, you will manifest the world that you want,
Exactly.
even
Mhm.
more so. And it will make you excited about your own life,
Yeah.
right? Because we should be excited about our lives.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And how the unconscious, like why we should keep track of our dreams. Why we should keep track of our dreams.
It's another way of talking about oneself. It's another way of learning, and because dreams are natural, you can't alter them. They just come the way they come. You don't
Mm.
you don't say, okay, that dream is wrong. No, the dream is telling you, even if you don't want to hear it. The dream is
Mm.
telling you something. And the other thing is, if you don't catch the dream and you don't want to hear its message, it'll repeat. So
Mm.
it's like our lives. If you don't catch the problem and deal with it, it'll just come up later in a bigger form, probably a
Mm.
worse form. Yeah. Mhm.
One question here, maybe most of the viewers also have it. The dream interpretation that different people have done throughout the history.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? Do you think we have to trust it, or we have to go to psychologists or how?
Well, yes, it's a good point. You can't really interpret your dreams yourself. I mean, you can do to a point, but we all have defenses.
Mm.
So we won't really go straight for the answer. That's why being in therapy or analysis and looking at dreams, you get kind of a different impression. The thing about interpreting dreams is, one, it's important to note the dreams. And what you feel about the dream and how you interpret the dream counts. No analyst or therapist should go, your dream means this, this, this. No, it's more the person talks about what the dream means to them, and they talk with the therapist or analyst to find a kind of a mutual way of being in relation to the dream and the dream message. But they say, and it's true, it depends on who you go to as to what the interpretation is going to be. There's kind of a classic idea that in a Freudian will interpret so differently than a Jungian will. It just is. It's a different theoretical background, but we want to trust that people who come to see us, whether they go this one, this one, this one, it's meant. They're going to the right person, unless they say, this way that you're looking at my life is terrible. I don't like it. They'll go to somebody else then, which they should do. So again, the interpretation can be very subjective, and that is why somebody who's an analyst has to have their own analysis. So you don't just put onto somebody your own ideas. That's not right. You want them to come forward with theirs.
So that's a good recommendation, because most of the people go and Google their dreams.
Yeah.
And rely on it. That's why I said, so your recommendation to seek for an analyst or a therapist, and then they can get together and they can find a more insightful meaning.
Yeah, and also a more related meaning.
Meaning.
So you can go on Google, you can go on ChatGPT, same deal, and that you will find an interpretation of the dream. In fact, it might even fit. However, it's lacking feeling.
Exactly.
So that's what a dream brings out, is your feeling, your way, your being. It helps you realize yourself. You can't realize yourself in relation to a computer. It just won't work. It will make us all robots. I don't think we want that. Yeah, that's why we have to watch it, actually.
Exactly. And how the unconscious helps in our lives?
Well, it depends on how aware you are of it and how much you use it. So if you honor it, you will know things are happening for certain reasons. It isn't just, kind of the daily life that counts. It's other feelings that you have about things. It's like somebody might say, I had this intuition that I needed to go this way, and they went that way. Is that the unconscious? I think it could be. That helps guide us and say, I should do this, or I need to go there. I need to open this, you could say, part on the computer. I need to write this. I need to plant a garden. Any of those things, even the food we eat, can become a means of becoming conscious, right? What do we feel we need? And the unconscious will tell us what we need. The question is, will we listen? That's the point. Will we listen? If you don't listen, the unconscious talks through the body as well, and will say, okay, you're not going to feel so good. And you might become sick because you weren't listening to your body or your psyche, your mind, your soul, even.
Yeah, that's a great point. So you mean like the unconscious is a kind of leading us?
Yes, it is.
And do we have control over it, or do we have a tool to interpret it, or do we have an intent or like tendency to do something, and then that is our unconscious? Because why I'm asking this question is most of the people think that when they follow their gut feelings or intuition,
That's right.
they lead them to the wrong place.
No,
Especially I heard from women these
yeah.
things, but I also told them that these are maybe something else. But I want to hear from you as a professional. Why, when they follow their intuition, so called, for them, they lead them the wrong direction?
Yeah, but you see, I agree with your interpretation and what you said. If you're really following your guts, I mean, really how you feel, I don't think it's going to lead you on the wrong path. If
The-
you are telling yourself a story and you're betraying yourself, you'll end up on the wrong path. As
Mm,
an example, somebody meets someone and they think that person is great, but they have a little flash inside which says, wait a second, what are you doing? They
mm,
don't listen to that. And they say, oh, yeah, I felt that so and so was great. No, it won't work because
mm,
that flash is the flash of the unconscious.
mm,
Tells us in many ways. You could say people get a pain in their body, they
mm,
get a flash through their psyche. The question is, are they going to listen?
mm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Most people will not listen because they don't trust themselves, because they don't know to trust themselves. They've had difficult situations, people, maybe parents, family, they couldn't trust, and so they didn't learn to trust themselves. And therefore, whoever they pick to be with, as an example of listening to your unconscious, they'll pick the wrong people all the time because they don't know.
Exactly. And what about uh, if they follow their conscious mind? For example, they choose something, but they are not listening to unconscious. At the end, they said, I was listening to my unconscious, but they don't know what is the conscious and unconscious. There is a voice in their head. Maybe that is the conscious mind. What do you
Um,
think
I
on this?
think that the voice in the head is the unconscious. I think that
Oh,
that's what they learn. That's what they say. Oh, I didn't hear it. And what you learn is, and this is what you learn in therapy and analysis, is you learn to which voices are correct for you. And
oh,
you learn to trust yourself, and you learn to trust this way, okay, it through experience. You get positive reinforcement. It became right. It worked. And then more and more, you'll listen to the unconscious.
mm,
But it usually will not lead you down a bad path. That that's
mm,
not that's not the point.
mm.
Yeah.
So again, you recommend these people to find a therapist in order to find out or differentiate between their conscious or different voices and the unconscious voice.
Yes. The connection
Mm,
between is important
mm,
to find out. Yes. So
mm,
you can use the energy, which is great energy to have.
mm.
Makes you stronger.
Yes, thank you very much. And also, one part of your studies and work is the relationship between
Yes.
themselves and other people. So,
Yes.
how to become a more complete and confident person in oneself and in relationship?
Well, again, I think that it depends on what you learn as you're growing up, the people that you interact with as an adult, how strong you feel inside. And when you don't feel strong, courageous, well, that you go and seek help in order to become strong, to expand your personality, and really to have confidence in being who you are, so that you don't just follow the crowd, you follow the inside, and you learn the signals that are yours inside signals. Everyone has got them. The question is, do they listen? So you learn therapy and analysis is learning to listen. And when you listen carefully to yourself, you will really be able to hear other people. You won't be so threatened. You won't put them down. You won't hate them. You will be able to be more open and be more of your really true self. The true self, not a facade, not an imposter, not the as if, but much more, this is really me, and I will tell you who I really am. Not argumentatively or defensively, but from a place of strength.
Exactly. And what do you think, why we are, I think, different, so different from each other? And why do you think we have to listen to what we are, like how to find who we are? For example, if a person want to be someone and
Yeah.
they want to be, they just try to be a conditioned person to that, like a politician or somebody, but they're someone else. How they have to find it, and is there any force that lead them to be themselves, this intuition or not?
Yeah. Well, if they're really listening to their intuition, they will be in the right place. If they're not, they're in the wrong place. And what will happen is just like what you said, something will come down on them. They will have a crash in a certain way. There will be an obstacle that will say you can't go farther down this road because this is not you. And you will have to take another road. You know, it happens so frequently that people say, but I got raised to be this. I knew my whole life I was going to be this. No, everything changes and they have to take a different road. And the change is always a difficult one. It doesn't feel good. You think you're in total despair and depression, but out of depression, you start to rise. And in that, you discover yourself, your abilities, your confidence, your belief in who you are, and you'll get on the right road. People, we always think that having a trip up, it didn't work, that was terrible. No, maybe it didn't work because it wasn't the right time. Maybe it didn't work because you need more of this, or this, more experience, more wisdom, more whatever. And then it can happen. But the process takes a while to really have the patience and the understanding to continue to regard yourself well along the path.
Thank you very much. And what causes the emptiness so many people feel about their lives, and how to recover?
Well, it's a very good question. I wonder that question myself always. I have a feeling that our cultures have a certain emptiness to them. Perhaps our families have had an emptiness, traumas, war, all kinds of things happen. Why are we taken with the zombies? Why are so many people walking around half dead? They don't feel, they're numb. This is not an uncommon thing, and it's from the emptiness inside. Filling the emptiness doesn't happen through the outside. It happens really by exploring yourself, taking the time and the effort to really look at yourself quite deeply inside. And that shifts things. But the emptiness derives in each person from a different way. Why are we all different? Because we're all special in a different way. And we all share a certain common humanity because we're humans. But the enchantment is that we're different, and the difficulty is that we are different. It's a paradox. And we don't want to be the same as everyone. When people say, we were all raised in the same family, no, you weren't. No, because the parents were different at different times, and everybody has different influences, and we are all born with a little different of the DNA. So to honor that difference is great. It leads to being a person, not like everybody else.
Okay, doctor, first I want to ask this question, why we are so different again, and what make us different? Is this a conditioned mind, family, or there are something unconscious that make us unique and different, as you say?
All of the above.
Hmm.
All of the above. I think each of us have a different ability to manage information. We all get raised in different families, countries, cultures. We also have different abilities to
Mhm.
access all the layers of the unconscious. And we want to respect how much we can do. We don't have to be like anybody else, but we do have to have to. I would say it's better to access all the information you can get. So, I mean, I said earlier about DNA. We all have a little different twist on the DNA coils and lines. So we are all going to be a little bit different.
Mm.
It's the beauty of being a person, and it's also the beauty of relationships, because then you don't completely know someone and you're always curious. Who
Mm.
are they? How do they affect me? How do I affect them? And then relationships will not become boring. One will be,
Mm.
right? You'll be
Mm.
interested and feel alive about life itself. So,
Mm.
yeah. So the difference is incredibly important. It,
Mm.
it makes us seek knowledge.
Mm.
Yeah. So,
Thank you so much, doctor. And please tell us about imposter syndrome and as if personality that you worked on it.
yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
explain it to us.
Yeah, I will. Thank you. The imposter syndrome is actually a popular word that has been around anyway. But there was in the 1940s, early 1940s, actually, long time ago, there was a Freudian psychoanalyst, a woman, who coined the term as if personality. And then throughout psychoanalysis, it was kind of used and not
Mm.
used. And another Jungian analyst picked it up,
Mhm.
and I thought it was very interesting because it really means someone who has put on a facade or an
Mhm.
image in order to hide their vulnerable and tender inner self. It doesn't mean that they are deficient. It means that they feel like a fraud. They
Mm.
don't, yeah, they don't feel real, and they also feel flawed. And this is a very common thing. It's like emptiness.
Mm.
Not unusual. I've had so many people come into my office, even the first meeting, and say, I know I am a fraud. No one knows it, but I know it. I do really well in the world. A lot of these people do excellently, but they don't feel solid. And they're
Mm.
always feeling anxious underneath. Some are
Mm.
superb performers, but empty inside somewhere. So to me, the intrigue of the imposter syndrome and the as if personality is to bring forward what is holding them back from feeling comfortable to be their real selves, so that their qualities, their abilities, and their solidity gets to come forward. Where it makes it very difficult with this kind of personality type is relationally, with themselves and with others. Very uneasy, worried, anxious, worried they'll be found out, worried they're not perfectionistic, worried that all the work at the gym isn't working well enough. I mean, you can see all kinds of people who are after the perfect body, the perfect look, the perfect face, the perfect whatever.
Mm.
I mean, it's an empty search. The real search is for the self. That's the real search. So what I write about is how people come to really find themselves. These particular people who, although most people don't realize it, they feel very insecure.
Mm.
Yeah.
So what causes this?
Good point. Usually there's been some neglect when they were young, or they were supposed to be the golden child, the wonderful one, the one who did best, the one that pleased the parents, the one that was, yeah, wonderful. But it's too much pressure, and they
Mm.
couldn't keep it up, and they became bewildered early because they thought they were being loved for their achievements rather
Mm.
than who they are. And they adopt this kind of facade to keep that going. But what happens is that inside they get more and more empty. So
Mm.
oftentimes they will come to therapy or analysis and realize about themselves, but they don't know what to do about it. But if they go back and recall how they were treated, what the neglect was, and they learn to not neglect themselves and listen, like we were talking earlier, to their conscious life, their unconscious, to be honest and truthful, their life becomes very enriched. Mhm. A lot
Mm.
of potential, a lot of potential. And I think that's what intrigued me was the amount of potential in somebody who is quite wonderful, but doesn't know it.
Mm.
So it's important to know your specialness.
Mm. A question here comes about this kind of personality and other psychological problems. How do people should understand or know about themselves that they have these traits and then go to an analyst? Look, like most of the people are unaware of these things.
Well, I'll tell you, most people who are imposters know it. The people who
Hmm.
are of the as if personality, they know it. You can just ask them. You think you're an imposter? Do you think you're not being real? Are you acting as if everything is all right when you think it isn't? And they will acknowledge it. Yeah, I am. I am, and I don't know what to do about it. So that's why you seek help. You seek help to expand your personality. You don't seek help only because there's a pathological deal. And I'm not talking about pathology. I'm talking about expanding to be all that you are. So
Hmm.
people who are imposters, you can just ask them. They'll tell you, yes, I am.
Hmm.
And they will also say, how did you know? You see, because they're trying to hide. Mask.
Hmm.
They have a mask on. You you can
Yeah,
tell. You can tell if somebody's wearing the mask.
exactly. Like I've seen people who are lying usually very much on everything, and the people who come across to them or newly know them, they don't know, but the people who went into them with for some while, they know them that they are lying. So is this also any sign of it or no?
Um, I think it is. Lying is difficult because some people are pathological liars. That's not what I'm talking about. A
Hmm.
pathological liar lies about every sentence. So, and they
Hmm.
sometimes don't even know it. The
Hmm.
lie, but the word lie is correct because the real is hiding behind the lie.
Hmm.
So if the lie gets taken off, like, that's not really true about you. I know that's not really you. There, that person will feel more able to come forward with their truth. So they their true selves, not a false image of themselves. They can be true. And actually, most people, many people, are not comfortable being their true selves. Yeah. And so we all might be a little bit imposter or a little bit as if everything is all right. We're pretending to protect ourselves because, yeah, because we might have learned the world isn't so safe and not so good. And maybe the world is safer than we had learned. And we want to learn about safety and trust, security, and ease at being one's entire self.
I don't know if it is a repeated question. What are the benefits and downsides to this personality type?
Well, oftentimes, the people of this personality type are high achievers because they have to be the best. They have to be most wonderful. They're the kind of people who would get great grades or who are leaders at work or make a pile of money. They're very oriented to achieve. The problem is they don't relax very well or really live life to its maximum. And so they're always kind of compromised. But they have a lot of talent, oftentimes, and can achieve a lot. One of the downsides is that they can come across as superficial. Yeah, so people might think, oh, this person's kind of empty. There's nothing inside. So they cheat themselves by putting on such a cover. Yeah. But yeah, but oftentimes very, very talented people.
Yeah, I remember I came across people like that. Do you think people cannot understand their depth at first sight because of their cover?
Yes, yes. Well, the cover is pretty well oriented. Pretty well oriented. I'll give you an example. It's kind of interesting one. Someone that I worked with, and it relates to the internet as well, because social media is another huge cover that people, you can Photoshop yourself until who knows what. But at any rate, a man that I worked with went into women's chat rooms, not because not to take advantage, but because he felt uneasy and insecure in the men's chat rooms. So he would find women chat rooms and he felt more comfortable there. So in a way, he was in disguise, but in a way, he was listening to himself. Yeah, yeah. The one thing I would say as well about this personality type is the wall around them can be pretty impenetrable because they're scared and anxious and worried and are trying to fend off all kinds of feelings. So it's not so easy to get inside, but that's what they want. That's what they want.
Doctor, one more question, and that is very intriguing, and I see in a lot of people. You said about the fear. What do you think about the fear? I saw different forms of fear in people. Even they don't realize, we don't realize, but different fears exist in people.
Well, fear is an interesting emotion because it can promote us to deal with it and to surmount the fear. It could also bring obstacles to us so we don't deal with it. If you're too afraid, where will you get in life? And you have to know some fear is correct. I mean, you don't go into the street because the cars might come. So there's something about knowing how to listen to fear, but also how to deal with it and not let it take you over. We're all anxious and fearful in ways we want to honor, but not let it stop us. There's the fine line. And we all have different things we're afraid of. Somebody is afraid of this, another's afraid of that. They're all valid. It's just don't let it stop you. That's the point.
For example, some people are afraid if they can make enough money to give to their household and to pay his or her just everything. So some people, there's a different fear. Some people are just afraid of something else. Although the first people, they have enough money, and the second party, they also have enough of those things, but still they're afraid, and they're doing. I've seen people that they are doing the entire life, and when they die, we see a lot of money they have, but still they were afraid of how I can survive.
Yes, but money also represents security. So if you're only working to make a bunch of money, it's not going to give you the security you need. Just like you say, there will never be enough. There will never be enough. And then what will have happened? Have you sacrificed your whole life for money when you really have enough? Or have you really lived and experienced all the beauties of life? If you're just working for money, talk about emptiness. It's empty. It's empty. Yeah.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Dr. Susan, for answering a lot of questions today. Can you please tell us how people can find you and how to access your work?
Thank you very much. They can find me on my website, which is Susan Schwartz, SchwartzPhD.com. And my books, Absent Father, Imposter Syndrome, and As If Personality, and then this year, The Girl Unfolding, are all on Routledge website, the publisher, as well as Amazon, Karnak, all of the online bookstores, they all sell them.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for joining us today on GNR Podcast. It was truly enlightening to have Dr. Susan A. Schwartz share their expertise and insight with us. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave your comments below. Stay tuned for more engaging conversation. Until next time, take care and keep exploring new ideas. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you very much.